I saw some posts the other day where somebody was like, wow, these agents get really defensive when you say that the housing market's about to crash, and it must mean that they know something's about to happen. When really, I actually think it's because a lot of agents don't know how to articulate what they're seeing in the market.
Welcome to the Real Pulse of Real Estate, where we discuss the true ins and outs of the housing market. Welcome back to Real Pulse of Real Estate. Cameron Berens is joining us once again. Thank you for joining us again, sir. I appreciate having you on. So this episode, something that you and I, once again, can talk people's heads off with, and I think is one really important, which is honestly part of the basis as to why I started Real Pulse of Real Estate, understanding the actual numbers and not getting spooked by quick Snapple highlights of, hey, this is what's going on.
Snapple highlights.
Yeah, and people just really not understanding more as to what's actually happening in real estate. They're just hearing verbiage, right? So recession, low inventory, crazy numbers, things, rates are spiking, inventories coming back, bubble, crash, 2008, all this stuff that we hear all the time. What the heck is happening in our market, and what numbers realistically are being translated to? Is this good? Is this bad? What's going on? Now, I do want to reiterate, you and I do talk a lot national numbers, but we will also be talking somewhat relatively Northern Kentucky numbers as well. So
try to incorporate both. Yeah. So first, I would like to say that anyone that you're hearing that's telling you a definitive thing that's going to happen is lying or full of themselves, because no one knows for sure what's going to happen. We have some indicators that can give us an idea. But for one, like, people have been saying that the housing market's going to crash for 4 years now. And I know there's been outside factors that have affected that, but that's exactly the point of what I'm trying to say is you can't know for certain what's going to happen, but real estate, it has a pretty long track record that we can follow. So what's happening right now, I think, if we're going to start with interest rates, is the interest rates were artificially held down longer than they ever should have been. I mean, realistically, interest rates should have never, back in 2018, what were we at, like 4% interest rates range-ish?
Yeah, and I know for a fact, even December 2019, Emily and I had refinanced and we're at a 4.75. Yeah. So they were right around that range.
We were between 4 and 5 in 2018, 2019, and they should have never gone down from there. And lots of things, regardless of what your political stances are political-driven reasons. We were getting ready to go into an election, and the previous administration wanted to look good. So they kept interest rates low, because that's one of the biggest factors that people dictate of what an economy's doing is real estate. But they didn't need to go that low, and they did. And then what happened to keep them low was COVID. And usually that's your way to fight inflation, is to buy, or a recession, I should say, is by lowering interest rates to fight a recession. But they already had interest rates at rock bottom prices. So that was off the table. So what should have happened is in 2018, I believe they shouldn't have continued to go back down.
Yeah.
So they were artificially held down longer than they should have been. And now we've heard for the past year that inflation's not really that bad. It's not really that bad. And then it's like, oh, yep, we were wrong. It's bad. So they have no choice but to increase rates. So they say, again, I'm not an economics major here or anything, but that's why they're increasing rates, to try to attempt to fight inflation. So when the Fed increases rates, the two aren't directly correlated, but historically they do trend together. So interest rates have gone up, and it's happened very quickly, because it should have happened a little bit earlier, and then it would have been a gradual process.
Yeah.
That's my belief on it anyway, is that it should have started earlier, and then it wouldn't have seen the big jump. And interest rates going up, if you zoom out, I use this example with the stock market and real estate market and interest rates and everything. When in doubt, zoom out and get a bigger picture. So don't just look at what's going on right now. Zoom out and see what's going on. Because if you do zoom out, then you'll probably look at and you'll see the historic interest rate or mortgage rate and realize, oh, wow, we're really only about average right now, aren't we? Yeah. We're not at historical highs like everyone's freaking out. I was just saying this morning, actually, was if you take like a timeline of the past 50 years of mortgage rates and then look at the past 2 years, it's like if you were to have like a scatter plot, which I, came from analytical background, you have a scatter plot, there's always the like outliers or these anomalies. And usually we remove those because it messes up the rest of the data because something maybe went wrong there. Something went wrong the past 2 years. Interest rates are not supposed to be that low. That was the outlier. So if you remove that, we're just kind of like at average. And I think people are just a little sticker shock right now because we were pretty much getting free money at the interest rates that they were at. And again, it shouldn't have been that way. And then our generation, specifically millennials, we saw nothing but interest rates going down because of 2007, 2008. We saw nothing but interest rates going down in order to fight a recession. And then we saw another once in a lifetime epidemic, which was COVID. And that made interest rates go down again. So we've known nothing but super low interest rates. And then we have like our parents' generation and the generation before that. They're like, we bought houses at 18%. And I'm not going to be one of those people that justifies, well, they were at 18%. Consider yourself lucky. I'm not trying to say that. But I'm trying to say historically, it's not like we're at really high interest rates right now. We're at about average.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I'm really explaining to my clients, my buyers, and understanding is, one, at the end of the day, buying a house is a financial thing. It's not a required thing. Right. And at the end of the day, one, looking at, yes, our interest rates and housing prices crazy because of the last 2 years. Absolutely. And does it feel like things are significantly halting or anything? I mean, how many times have we had phone calls of like, oh, wow, 2 whole days and I haven't had an offer yet, or things like that. And agents can call and freak out, right?
Yeah.
Well, I like to explain to my clients that it's as though you're going on a family road trip, allegedly on a family road trip, and allegedly you're cruising at 90, 95 miles an hour, because no one does that. But you're on the highway. It's smooth. It's 90, 95, no traffic whatsoever. And all of a sudden, you're getting off on those local roads because you're getting closer to the Airbnb or hotel or wherever you're staying. And now you're going 35 miles an hour and stopping at red lights. That feels like that takes longer than your 100-mile trip on the highway.
Right.
Because of the slowdown. But at the same time, it's not bad that you've slowed down. Right.
Still moving.
Yeah. And I kind of like to explain it that way, because one big thing that I was reading up on, keeping current matters, and you'll hear Cameron and I talk about keeping current matters quite a lot, because if you're a realtor, if you're in real estate, if you want to know what's happening in real estate and you're not paying attention to keepingcurrentmatters.com or their blogs, start doing that.
Yeah.
But
awesome.
One big thing with them is describing home prices have appreciated since 2012. Now, the average year over year is normally like 5 to 6%. But for the last couple of years, Q1, Q4 of 2020 and 2021, around 18%. That's triple what we're used to. So again, like you were saying, those outliers are really causing panic for what we're still in a seller's market. We're still low inventory.
It's crazy, because one of the things that is going to take some adjusting on real estate agents that have been in the business or are new to the business in the past 2 years. And it's going to take a lot of just consumers, because it's happened for 2 years, time to adjust to this, is when a home sells at list price, that is still a seller's market in most everyone's book. And when we're not getting, people are starting, we've seen this already, panic a little bit. Oh, well, I listed my house at 375 and I had to do a price reduction to 350. And I'm like, well, your neighbor's house at the same exact year sold at 340. You were just trying to get even more. Now, if you still get 350, does that mean you didn't get appreciation? Does that mean you didn't sell your home for top dollar? No, you just didn't get the madness of 10 offers. This isn't the norm. I'm not saying that that's not ever happened, but it's not the norm. And now I think there's going to be a lag time. And I think we're already seeing it right now. We're living it in this moment. And the rates going back down could fluctuate this. That's why I say no one knows exactly what's going to happen. But if we keep it the trajectory we're going, I think we're living in a moment right now, depending on your price point, depending on your area, where you're still in a seller's market, most likely. And there's going to be a lag between the consumer and the public realizing that the home's not selling in a day or two or first weekend. It's selling in 2 weeks, but they're in those 2 weeks, they're going to be panicking is what's happening. And then what happens is you take a deep breath and, I still got a full price offer. It just took 2 weeks. Well, I mean, by any stretch of what you would call a good market, getting top dollar, all of that, to me, that still qualifies as that. And we even have to catch ourselves sometimes. Like I know I was telling you, I was like, hey, do you like feel what's going on right now? Like I had a listing and we didn't get an offer the first week. And then that following weekend, we got a little bit over list price. Because it was just because they needed closing costs is why. But still, it's going to take some adjusting for people to get used to that. And I'm not saying that's going to happen the same for every market. So we talk about this on a national and local level. Real estate is local. That's a common saying. If you're in real estate, you probably have heard that. Real estate is local because what's happening in our market may not be happening in Miami or Houston or some other little town no one's ever heard of in South Dakota. And pay attention to what's going on in your market, because there are some stipulations. And I know everybody loves to listen to stuff and point out the 1% that you were wrong about, which was, okay, yes, maybe there are markets in Texas or Florida or Arizona that have appreciated more than they should have because of investors moving in, and not moving in, but coming in, buying properties cash and paying ridiculous amounts over, people moving from other states, shifting around. And maybe those markets are overinflated or a little bit overpriced, but the majority of markets are not, at least not from what we're seeing.
And that's, I think, one thing, because we've watched Tristan's YouTube videos and everything. I think the one I sent you, was it Iowa or Idaho, has one of the cities that is the most grossly.
It was one of those two. I can't remember.
I can't remember
because it was so like, what?
Yeah. Well, and it was one of those, like, I thought, like, people go there. I mean, no offense to South Dakota people, Idaho, Iowa, whatever. But no, at the end of the day, there were some where it's like, these are, again, we'll use the word outliers of they are just grossly overvalued versus what other places are on the geographical map that Tristan was sharing and everything. Again, I appreciate that I have you to call, or you call me to be like, oh my God, it's been 24 hours and I don't even have a single offer yet. Because I'm not going to do that to the buyer's agent. I'm not going to call the buyer's agent. But there are agents right now who are calling me and are calling other agents 2 days on market, willing to give the farm up, because at the end of the day, it's not something, although we've been through it before, with how aggressive and how volatile the last few years were, this feels so out of the ordinary right now.
Even though it is the ordinary. But we're getting back to a more ordinary is what I think is happening. At least that's the direction, the trajectory we're headed in. But with like the prices of homes and everything, like the bubble, the infamous word, housing bubble. Could we be in a bubble? Possibly. The data that I see doesn't indicate that for most markets. Maybe not every market. There's markets in Florida where a bunch of people moved to, a bunch of investors gobbled properties up cash. They may be in a little bit of a bubble there. It could be an isolated bubbles throughout the country. But the biggest thing that dictates real estate prices and bubble is the supply and demand. Speculation is another thing with it, but I don't know if anybody's doing too much speculating at the moment with their buying, because people are kind of hesitant. But I wrote down some numbers here that I really think helps understand and wrap your head around what the current supply and demand situation is like. Because I think as agents, we want to tell people, like I saw some posts the other day where somebody was like, wow, these agents get really defensive when you say that the housing market's about to crash, and it must mean that's, they know something's about to happen. When really, I actually think it's because a lot of agents don't know how to articulate what they're seeing in the market. They don't know the number. Like you and I can spout numbers off like instantly. And I don't think they know how to do that, or they just don't know how to explain enough. Like, well, they know that's not what they're seeing. They're like, well, how are these people telling me we're in a housing bubble when I'm still getting multiple offers? Or my buyer that's a first-time home buyer still can't find a home. So right now, and I just throw some quick stats out here, there's 5 million more millennials that are in prime buying age than there were in 2007. Because I'm going to compare us to 2007 because I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is just like it was in 2007. It's not. I'm not saying a housing bubble can't happen, but if one were to occur in the next year or two, it wouldn't be the same factors. Anywho, we got 5 million more, which if you didn't know right now, the millennial generation is the largest living generation, the past baby boomers like a year or two ago. And now they're in their prime buying age, which is considered like mid 30s, early 30s. So that's 5 million more buyers in the market. Also, there are approximately 120 million households right now. So people that need a house, these are households. Compared to 2007, there were 116 million households. There's 12 million more households. They're like, okay, well, more houses have been built, so they've got more houses to go. Well, back in 2007, there were more supply back then. That's what happened. We have a supply issue right now. There were 2.1 million home starts. This is new construction for those that aren't in real estate. 2.1 million home starts in 2007. And this year, the last I saw, we were projected to have 1.4 million. And with interest rates rising, that might affect that even more now, because builders are scared that they're not going to be able to sell the properties. So they're actually slowing up a little bit from the things that I've seen is that builder confidence has gone down. So that builder confidence goes down for those that don't know in real estate. That means they're not going to be building as quickly because they're scared.
Yeah. Well, and one thing to touch on that is there are some builders that, at least locally, that we've been seeing are combating a little bit of offering free 180, 120 day rate locks and things like that because they're losing people.
I've got a picture on my phone, not to cut you off, but I forgot to show you this yesterday. I'm not going to say what neighborhood in case anybody locally sees this, but a builder actually put up the sign, free finished basement. What? Builders are giving some incentives again? We haven't seen builder incentives in a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah. It's been a while. I have an appointment with a builder on Thursday, and they're preaching their incentives left and right now.
Yeah.
That is one big thing with builders that yes, there are some builders backing up because of what's happening. There are some builders combating with, we'll toss in incentives, we'll toss in longer rate locks and everything. So you're not getting screwed out of rates going up any further. But at the same time, you've got to understand pricing for new builds. And again, this is a personal opinion, aren't going to drop significantly anytime soon. We're still in a low inventory. We're still dealing with supply demand. And at the end of the day, materials wise, yes, the big to do thing was lumber's going up. Yeah. You know what else is going up? Hinges for doors, door handles, lighting fixtures. The amount of clients I had close on their home and have a work order that said, I know you've closed, but we still have to install these lights when they finally come in because of the shipping issues that we're having and all that other stuff. All of those things are also still going up. And that's why builders are still dealing with these pricing situations.
And I think just the whole like recession and housing market crash and all those key, trigger words that people like to use to get attention or clickbaity words. Yeah, it's great for clickbait. If I were to make a video right now and do a crazy thumbnail image and say the housing market's crashing, I could make that video about whatever. But as long as I put that there, people are going to click on it.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people are using is just the media wanting to get attention. And I think a big thing, and you and I both know this figure because we both recited it so many times, is recession does not equal housing market crash.
Yes.
Recession does not equal housing market crash. The two and two are coupled together because of 2008. People just assume that's what that means.
Yes.
But that was a recession caused by the housing market. To my knowledge, I don't think it's ever happened in history besides that one point where the housing market pretty much alone caused a recession.
Yes. And that very much had to do with lending laws and everything else that have very much so since then been corrected. Yeah. So everyone who is buying a house who feels like they're just being questioned and they're a felon because they're just being asked for a bank statement for the 8th time.
Yeah.
That's all because of to protect us from another 2008.
Yeah.
Now, again, the numbers show that most recessions, housing prices have actually appreciated in most. Now, 2008 was so aggressive. I believe it was like negative 16%, somewhere around there, negative 16, 17.
20%. It was a lot.
But yeah, at the end of the day, most recessions we're still seeing
the
appreciation.
Past 6, now we could be in a recession right now. We don't know for sure. Of course, we won't find out for whatever, like another month or two.
Yeah.
But the last 6 recessions, 4 home prices actually went up still. Right. That's the graph that I'm thinking of. This,
yeah.
The last 4
because it had green and red.
Yeah.
It was very simple.
Nice, pretty
looking.
colors.
Yep.
Yeah. But and even the one that it went down, I don't have it in front of me, but it was less than 2%, I believe. That the one where it went down, besides the one where the housing market caused the crash, which again, that was due to loose/shady lending practices. And I know some people are like, well, the ARM mortgages, adjustable rate mortgages are coming back. They are a little bit, and people definitely need to make sure they're making good decisions. But it wasn't just that there were ARM mortgages. It's people were getting pre-approved for mortgages without qualified debt to income ratio and credit scores.
Yeah.
And we still have people today that we're trying to help buy a home, and it's why I got to get my credit score up. And they do, because the lender's like, well, you got a 560 credit score. You don't have enough to put down. It's not, oh, you have a job, we'll give you a mortgage. So people are still more qualified to buy homes on an average basis than they were back between 2004 2007 when all the madness was happening.
Like you've said, and that keeping current matters, home price deceleration doesn't mean home price depreciation.
Yeah.
2 very different things. Just because it's slowing down and not as high of a return year over year does not mean we're losing house value and everything else.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, going back to your Your analogy using the car going on vacation, the deceleration does not equate to depreciation. That's what I think it's just going to take, hopefully only a couple months for people to realize. I hope it doesn't last too long, but it's going to take a little bit for people to realize when we're saying the housing market's going to cool down or the housing market is going to get more balanced. That doesn't mean you're going to lose property value. Now, there will be markets and there will be price points where that may happen. If you are in a more considered, quote unquote, luxury price point, you may feel the impact a little more because you may have bought your house at a 3% interest rate and now they're at 6% and someone's like, I don't want to buy that right now. I'm going to buy a smaller house. But that's again, these are the outliers. But for the majority of homeowners, instead of that 18% appreciation, maybe you're only getting 3 to 5%. That's still appreciation. It's not depreciation. And that's what I think people are it's just going to take a little bit of time for people to adjust to that new norm, with getting back to the old norm.
Yeah. And I do think that's a big thing because, let's be real. Here in Northern Kentucky, what's our average price point? 250 to 275. 250 to 275,000 is your average price point at the end of the day. And we have had this conversation before where we're even seeing two different kind of markets right now. Where above 300,000 price point is a third of what our inventory is. The remaining 2/3 is below 300,000. And then at the end of the day, above 300,000 in Northern Kentucky, you're seeing about 32 days on market before going pending. Below 300,000, you're seeing 16 days before days on market.
So again, I like that you said a third of the inventory versus 2/3 of the inventory. So which homes are selling more quickly and for maybe going into multiple offers or top dollar? The one that has the 2/3 of the inventory. Whereas that higher price point, it's a third of the inventory. It's also a smaller portion of the buyers. Is what I'm trying to get at with that is not as many buyers can afford that. So your buyer pool is smaller. So the chances of you getting 10 buyers that are interested in your property is not the same as if you're below the average sales price or at the average sales price. And that's why we're seeing little indicators in our market. Now I know other people may say that's average for us, but in our market, 500,000 and up is above average, well above average.
I would love to be an average of that, but that's not where we are.
I love that. But so for your market, that may be $1 million, whatever it is. But keep in mind, for reference, our average sales price is, I think it's like $275-ish right now. So $500,000 home, we're seeing more open houses. We're seeing maybe some price reduction. But at the same time, these are still selling for record high prices. It's still somebody that bought a home and is selling it for $50,000 to $100,000 more than they got it for. The move up market is what I like to call it. And I didn't coin that. I heard that from someone. But you can say it's where that first time home buyer can now sell their home and get top dollar and sell it in a seller's market and move up to that, next level, larger home, whatever you want to refer to it as. And maybe get a little bit off list price, maybe get it at list price, not getting them bidding war. And I'm not saying that that's every market right now, but that's where it seems like to me, we're headed into, which is a more balanced market. That's kind of what it should be. Then that's what will make it a more healthy market too, where all these millennials that are sitting on the sidelines, renting, still living at home, whatever, and they want to get out to the market. But that first-time home buyer inventory is so tight right now because they're afraid to move because they're not going to find anything. Whereas if they can now feel like, oh, I can find something, it's going to be reasonable. Now I'll put my home on the market, then they can move in, and the natural circle of real estate life can keep happening. But the buyer demand is still really strong. The inventory still really low. We have 50% of the inventory approximately that we had back in 2007. And that's one of the things you can say, well, interest rates are going up and people, the housing market's going to come crashing down. I don't know what it's like in your market, but in our market, it's still sometimes cheaper to own than it is to rent. So if it's cheaper to own, even at a 6% interest rate, doesn't matter what the interest rate is. The interest rate could be 10%. If it's cheaper to own than it is to rent, people are still going to own at 10%. Because it just makes sense financially. And ultimately, people want to own a home because either way, you're paying for a mortgage. It's just whether it's yours or somebody else's. And I think that's the thing is that rents, there's just so many factors. So it's like at the beginning of this, when you said something like what's going on in the market is there's so many factors. If somebody pigeonholes one and tells you this is what's going to affect the market because they're trying to get a good talking point or they don't know what they're talking about, or they're just, again, they want to get some views on a video. But there's so many factors going on. There's things going on overseas. There's the inflation. There's buyer demand that's really high. There's Foreclosures, that's a word we haven't really even heard anybody talk about in a year. What happened there? Everyone said foreclosures were going to hit the market, except me. But and you didn't say it either. But
thank you for tossing me in there with
yes, I know you said it too. And again, I could be eating my words a year from now because something could happen, could change. And I'm always going to put that little asterisk there that I could be wrong. And I'm not going to say that foreclosures won't hit the market due to some reason. But the demand is so strong that they'll still be gobbled up. If this slew of foreclosures that we were told was going to start hitting the market, and now all of a sudden nobody talks about it anymore. And also just a little caveat there that foreclosures don't just hit the market. It takes time. So I'm saying this now, and in 2 years from now, there could be foreclosures that were caused by something happening. But again, if the demand's there, it doesn't matter. Like right now, if 500,000 foreclosures hit the market nationwide, they're going to get gobbled up pretty quickly. There may be some people that got in and got a good deal, or maybe got a fair deal would be a better term, but they're still going to get sold real quick. Yeah. If you're going to buy now, and I know, but real estate agents love to say, it's a great time to buy. It's a great time to sell. It's a great time to buy, which you can spin the narrative any way you want to make anything sound great. But I think you just got to look at your financial situation. Is it a good time to buy? Well, I don't know. Let's talk. Are you going to move in 2 years? Maybe you shouldn't buy right now. Like when we just moved almost 2 years ago, I wasn't as concerned with whether I was paying top dollar because my plan was to live in the house for 15, 20 years until my kids were out of school. So now I can't always control what happens in my life, and something could happen to make me want to move, but I know that was a pretty safe plan. So I didn't care if I had to pay top dollar a little over to get the home. But everyone's situation is different. Also, are you paying $1,500 a month in rent right now? Could you afford to get a house that fits your needs and your mortgage payment be $1,300? Then who cares what your interest rate is? And you can always refinance if rates go down. Some people are like, well, I'm going to wait for rates to go down. Yeah, you may have to pay some closing costs, but if you plan on being there for 5 to 10 years, who cares? Don't buy the house now instead of waiting for prices to go up, because every expert that is considered, a valid expert, or someone that people listen to, I don't know any of them that are saying prices are going down.
There's a big difference of they are talking about a correction in the market, but that does not mean crash in the market. Every market stock, whatever, needs to have a correction at some point. But that does not mean we're going to be seeing the 2008, we're at 16 to 20% depreciation.
Everybody's situation is different. So if you're going to have to buy a home and you're going to have to use no money down, and you're going to be at the highest extent of your debt to income ratio and have 2 pennies to rub together when you move in, it doesn't matter what the rates are. You probably shouldn't be buying a house just yet. You need to get your financial house in order first. But if you can put 5% down, you're not even close to your debt to income ratio. You want to be in the house for 5 years. As long as, again, your debt to income ratio is good, then what does it matter? You're paying rent somewhere else, I assume, unless you're living with someone for free, then I guess, ride that out. But
for sure.
But just make a smart decision regardless. And stop watching as much TV. That's a good thing too. Start watching something. Learn how to better do your finances or something like that. Don't watch how the world's coming to an end, because I'd be panicked too if I were you.
No, and I agree, and I think these are all great points. And Cameron, I appreciate you sharing those numbers and kind of just talking about, again, the real pulse of what's happening out there. So Cameron, thank you again for joining me on Real Pulse of Real Estate. If people are looking to find you on social media or any different platform, how would they do that?
You can always look me up on pretty much any social media platform: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Google. Cameron Berens. So my first name, Cameron, then my last name, Berens, Berens. You'll be able to find me any way you want by just typing.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Cameron, for being on, and we'll go ahead and talk a little bit more. So looking forward to the next episode.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Real Pulse of Real Estate. If you're looking for more content, follow me on Instagram or TikTok at I'm Cron Burgundy, or Facebook at Adam Cron Realtor. Can't wait for you to join us next week.